We're just getting prepared with Peter and
Andreas. Yeah, sorry it says only Peter on the agenda, but I just couldn't help myself. I'm from CrowdNode as well. There's 4 of us on the team and we're all here today. Just before we get started, maybe just loosen up a little bit here. Whew.
How do you feel?
I feel good, actually. Not tilting over, but that was, whoa. So, I love being here in Switzerland, Crypto Valley, Ambrissi and everything, but what is really so great about Switzerland? I don't really know, but their flag is a great plus.
Yeah. All right.
So this is the team. There's 4 of us. I'm the first guy, Andreas, Peter Thornton, Thomas, and Vesborg. So besides creating what we think is a really amazing product, there's something special about this team, to me, very special. The product we created is one we wanted for ourselves. But looking at these guys, there's more to it to me personally. You're looking at some of my, I'm still a bit shocked about the thing before, some of my very best friends. Thornton, I've known for 15 years. Thomas, I've known for 20 years. And Peter, I've known for 25 years. And actually the guy that 9 years ago approximately introduced me to Bitcoin. So I'm just going to give it to you for a moment.
Okay, so we have the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, and I'm the CON. And does anybody know what that is? It's the chief of nothing. That's my role in the company. Okay, so what are we doing? What was the point? What do we set out to do? So there's this concept of a Dash Masternode, which we all know and love. And there's this little requirement of 1,000 Dash. And it gives 65 Dash per annum once you have one. So that's a pretty good yield in this day and age. Besides some other things we'll talk about. And the idea is, of course, via our platform to pool smaller amounts of Dash from a lot of people into units of 1,000 Dash. And then we set out to distribute these 65 Dash per year, 15% to us and 85% to the crowd. And we saw a sustainable business doing that. And back when we sort of came up with this was a time in late December when we were just about to take over the world, right? It was euphoria. Dash was above $1,000, and that means that a masternode was quite literally $1 million, right? And so well out of reasonable reach for ordinary people. And so there was pooling services. So the problem was sort of had a solution already. These solutions had some drawbacks we thought made it impractical for what we wanted, because Andreas said we try to make a solution that we ourselves would like. And some of it was high minimum deposits, for example, typically about a 50 Dash minimum, which is still a lot of money if a Dash is $1,000. And they were all run by community members of sort of impeccable reputation. And how do you get your foot in that, because nobody knew us? As Mark Mason said when we did an interview with him early on, he said, like, out of the blue. So that's where we came from. Anyhow, the other thing we wanted to address really importantly is the stout participation. So participation in the voting of Dash proposals and decision making, and the transparency. To make it really transparent, not just we have X masternodes, but what are the masternodes? What are the IP addresses? What did they vote, and so on and so forth. So that basically led to this short list of what we wanted to do. We wanted to basically try to have a leading transparency. That's been a mantra. Also, basically a corporate entity in an EU country with a sort of well-defined legal framework, so that if we defraud people, they can come after us in Denmark and not Cayman Islands via Hong Kong or something. And also, really, because we're already doing it, focus on active community participation, trying to help build Dash for the benefit of Dash. And so, of course, with a reasonable margin at $1,000, we saw a good business case at the time. Okay, so the history, what do we do?
History. So the idea was conceived back in December 2017, where we sat down, the four of us, had a few beers, and we talked about a lot of ideas, but I think this was actually your idea, Peter, and that sort of exceeded the other ideas by lengths. So the company was established in March, but lots happened in between December and March, obviously. I took a leave of absence from my day job, so started working full-time on this in February. We worked and worked heavily on it. We met often, and after 3 months, we had some substantial on community sites supporting things like faucets and block explorers and all that stuff. So touching the out of the blue, nobody saw us coming. Well, nobody paid enough attention, I think, but that's a different matter. We launched 8th of August on testnet, which was actually silenced launch prior to that, but that was when we announced it. And approximately a month later, we launched on mainnet. Following that launch, briefly, we did our first transparency report. And by the way, closely tied to the launch, we had our first Masternode spun up, which was obviously something we managed to partially do ourselves. But nonetheless, that's obviously an important part to show that the Masternode setup was working even in production very briefly after the launch. It really hit, the 10th of October interview with Mark, that was only supposed to be maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, turned out to sort of rocket our adventure, really. He kept asking questions. He was like unstoppable, dashy. By November 29th, we had the great celebration of our 10th Masternode, and the adventure continued. We grew over the months, and as promised in the interview with Mark, we introduced member voting, which Peter will touch more on. And we had 500 members in May, and by members we mean people who signed up, and 21 Masternodes at that point in time. And that leads us sort of up to now. We have 26 Masternodes. There will be some metrics in Peter's slides as well. We can spin up Masternode 27. We could actually before we left, but we didn't have time to put the keys back in the bank vault, so we didn't. But we will when we get home. So that's Masternode number 27 in hopefully just a few days.
Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the credo here, which is transparency, we made all these transparency reports, and we basically sat down and thought about what kind of data might people be interested in that we can make publicly available, and so people can discuss, and we put everything in that we thought of. And if you think of something else, please come and tell us. So we will probably be able to accommodate that. But this is where we are now. Basically, we have 600 and something members on the platform, out of which right now 270 have a balance above zero. So this does not mean that people just signed up and never put in money. This is also including people who signed up, put in money, took it back out to sell it or start their own Masternode or whatever. And we also have our own Discord, also with a number of people sort of roughly managing the people who have a balance. We also, in the transparency reports, decided to put out dirty laundry. So we actually report every month incidents where we have, if a Masternode has crashed or had a push score or something else went wrong, that we didn't get all the votes out or something failed, we put it there also. And someone asked yesterday, what does the progression look like for the amount of money on the platform? And we just pull out this plot. So I put in bigger captions here because you can't really read it. But this is basically the number of Dash. So this is 30,000 Dash. And this is starting in September last year until September of this year. So clearly, there was a fast projection up to the first 15 or so Masternodes. And then it's been slightly slower, but still pretty steady going. And this is the net. The inflow is higher, but there's also, of course, a net outflow these days. OK. So transparency might be the credo, but what we really think is important is the governance. And I'll get back to that. Because I think that potentially governance is the strongest point of Dash. I mean, instant send is great, and private send is great, and chain locks and all that, but I think the governance feature is really our killer thing. And it's because Dash can ask the token holders questions and get a response that is sort of weighted to the people who actually hold the coin. A little bit like shareholders of a public company. And, but not that. We can make decisions on should we change the logo and whatnot or change the block size. But we also have this treasury where we can give money to things, to projects we like with this grant model. Very soon we'll have the diff where we can give money to projects we like but in a different basis. So this equity or maybe loan model. And I think really this is the only real DAO among all the leading cryptos, I think. So. So I could compare to all the other top coins. I just want to say that this governance model, compared to having, say, a benevolent dictator or doing a user-activated soft fork to whether we should do this or that and going around with red caps and so on, is basically it makes all the other approaches look stupid, including minor signaling, I think. So anyway, that's where we are. But I think I would actually argue that the reason that Bitcoin failed, in my opinion, is that it did not have a mechanism to actually ask the people who had Bitcoin, what should we do? So it's just, it's the consensus by tweet or Reddit or something stupid. So how can we improve upon this? Why do we need to improve upon it if we already have the best solution? I think it's because there is this argument being made that it's only for the rich. Only the whales have a masternode, and so only the whales get to decide, and somehow that's worse than just having a dev team deciding everything. Okay, that's what we're being met with, and I think our platform and hopefully competing platforms soon basically will offer Dash governance to non-masternode owners, right? So that regular people can get this feeling of ownership. I think there's some disenfranchisement. If I have 100 Dash, I'm really invested, but I don't have a tenth of the say that somebody who has 1,000 Dash has, right? And so why would I buy half a masternode if I can only afford that? But I only get part of what I should be getting, right? I don't get the returns and I don't get the say. So I think if we can flip this on its head and enfranchise the people who have the equivalent of a fraction of a masternode, that would be really great, and it would totally kill this argument. And the other problem that we want to address is this. Yeah, but even the most controversial proposals only get 1,000 votes out of 5,000 votes. So Dash masternode owners are lazy. That's why this is a terrible system. And I think, again, this is something we can solve. Our approach to this is what we call voting amplification, where basically the members on our platform can vote. But of course, not everyone does for various reasons, certainly not for every proposal. And so that means that the people who actually do vote, who do care about a certain proposal, voting yes or no or abstain or whatever, they get their voice amplified by the people who don't vote, sort of lending their vote to them. Unless you actively opt out and say, no, please don't give my vote to anyone else, please don't vote on this proposal. That, of course, we let people do. But the default is that people delegate their vote to the people who care about the proposals. And that way, actually, the little guy now has a disproportionate vote or influence on decisions, because you not only have your own 30 Dash, but you also have another 50 Dash from the people who had money on the platform who just choose to not vote for a given proposal. So when the Dash price recovers, I hope that the Dash Boost initiative, which we thought was great, will be revived. And we will then also support CrowdNode member voting for Dash Boost type proposals that are more well-suited for these smaller initiatives, as was the original idea. Maybe this doesn't really make sense with a 60 euro Dash, but it certainly does make sense with a 600 euro Dash. So, so that's how we think we can improve upon the built-in protocol level governance that we already have. So just to illustrate how the amplification works, this is taken from one of our transparency reports. You probably can't read this, but these are sort of the list of proposals for a given voting cycle. At the time, I guess this is in the summer, apparently we had 22 votes to give on the platform, and you see the net votes here listed, sort of ranked in order. And you see these green bars out here that says amplification factor. So the longest bar here is 16.7, and the shortest bar is around 2. So 2 means that basically half of all the Dash on the platform chose to vote. And 16 means that very little Dash chose to vote. But the ones who do, they really get their vote amplified a lot. So they get to have 18 yes votes for Dash Help Support Center, I think this is. Okay? So that's the amplification sort of in action. And it's self-regulating because if a given proposal has very few people who have voted anything, then I'm more incentivized to look into that proposal and vote yes or no because I know I'm going to have a higher amplification factor, right? So we can make some observations. We see that people are actually happy to delegate their vote. You see the do-nothing votes here, very few. We have like, I don't know, 10 do-nothing votes in total out of hundreds and hundreds of votes cast. And these are the people who actively say, please don't give my vote to anyone else. And we respect that, but it's actually a rarity. And we also see that if we look at the ranking, if you look at what actually got the top votes and what was close to the threshold here in the CrowdNode vote versus the real full 5,000 Masternode vote, it's not always a one-to-one correspondence, actually. Some proposals that sort of rank in the top here come out very close to the threshold in the general vote, which I think is interesting. And I won't claim to understand it, but that's how it is. So apparently it has an effect. And we also see that the amplification factor for multi-month proposals goes down over time, which makes perfect sense because people who maybe didn't get to log in on the platform vote this month, they get the chance the next month, and so on and so on. And finally, we see higher amplification for small proposals. So a 50 Dash a month proposal, most people say, I'm not going to read in, I'm just going to delegate my vote. But if it's a really big one, somebody's asking for 500 Dash for 3 months, then people will read up on it and vote. So that's what we see. And we think the future looks dashy. Get it? Okay, so what are we doing? So on the platform, we're going to improve the user experience. Right now, the voting interface is clunky. We have that feedback. We know we're doing something about it, but it works. And we also have a bug on the fundings page we're about to fix. Moreover, when Dash Evolution comes out, obviously it's going to conquer the world, but the thing we look most forward to is the blockchain users feature, because that'll enable us to get over this thing we have now where people have to deposit from a specific address, which means coin control, which means complications. A lot of work for us supporting people also. So much better user experience. We also are going to introduce APIs via the blockchain, so you can sort of do blockchain special transactions or up return type things, and basically ask our portal to give you something back. For instance, check your balance or withdraw an amount, or maybe basically start up a new user, basically a sign up, if you will, but all without using the graphical user interface that you have to use now. Finally, we think that it would be reasonable and perhaps beneficial for the community to integrate a service such as ours directly into a wallet, like the DashPay wallet, so you can sort of swipe between your spending wallet and your savings wallet. So you make it really easy for the user who is not technical to say, yeah, I might have 50 Dash on my phone, if you're, let's say, a little bit ambitious with the security on your phone. And then you can just swipe 49 of them to a savings account and earn a little bit of rewards, because you know that a beer downtown and the number of beers you're going to have is only going to cost you that last Dash. And finally, of course, we're really open for any ideas and partnerships and anything that basically helps grow the ecosystem. We're happy to help if it makes any sense. Okay? So, to sum things up, Dash used to have governance by whales, and now we have a little bit. It's only 27, soon to be, but starting to have governance by the crowd. And the feature that I didn't talk so much about, but I think because we've introduced it on the platform, and we would like your feedback on how to promote this or whether it makes sense, is this feature where basically a masternode who's in it for the money, basically, doesn't really care about reading all the proposals every month, doesn't have time for it, doesn't have an interest, whatever, can delegate via this new voting key feature their voting feature to basically our platform and have that be a part of the pool of votes that is decided on by the crowd, right? So I get my rewards, I'm a whale, I have 5 masternodes, but I give my 5 votes to the platform and they sort of enter the amplification factor thing. Now, we think that makes sense. Maybe that will increase the total participation in voting. And the question is, do we need to incentivize that somehow, or is it just an educational thing, or is it just a silly idea? So basically, if you're an MNO, are you in it for the money, or are you in it for the influence? That's the thing. And if you're in it for the money, sort of only, can we somehow get you to submit your voting keys? You can always, of course, override or revoke. but we lend your voting keys for the crowd. And is there some opportunity here for the Dash for the Dash DAO to really market its governance more than it has? Because personally, I don't think that we get enough credit for how awesome the governance system is. Okay? So that's it. I hope Jan will allow 1 or 2 minutes for questions.
So I know the German guy. We had a lot of German slides here, by the way. Sorry, Jan. We are 11 seconds over time, so no questions. We'll take them bilaterally, I think. But one thing, talking dirty laundry, the session yesterday was only with Masternode owners, and some other people. One person did provide a voting key for us, and we did not include it in the voting cycle we just finalized. So our mantra, one of them at least, full transparency even on dirty laundry, hereby complied. Talk to us outside. Thank you, guys.